After reaching another conclusion, we continue on. Gachiakuta, episode 23. To start this episode off, we recap the cleaners exiting the trash beast. So, after coming back from the opening, we get some definitive proof that Vegeta is a girl, which is she's showing some skin. But Tamsi and Delmon are discussing how can these raiders make a trash beast and how are they able to do so. That's where simply Gita explains it to them. After that small discussion, we go back to Ruto, who has woken back up. He just wants to get some sugar in him and get back to his little safety net. Transitioning from that, all we see is a bottle floating. Now we're all at once back into the city. This is where a mysterious man runs in front of this Jeep vehicle. It turns to its side as the man is trying to pull insurance fraud asking them for money. The vehicle puts down their windows. It's the cleaners with glasses jamming out to some music doing this like little dance. It is pretty peak comedy. Instead of giving the man money, Engine gives him a referral to the Alice Clinic in the next town over, and then he swerves off. We get to see closer afterwards. This all stems back to Engine's very terrible driving, which a lot of the cleaners dislike. He drives crazily and he plays loud music. With another transition, we get to see the group has made it back to the cleaners HQ. Rudo's walking with others when suddenly we have August who is harassing him about his clothes, and Rudo isn't really making any small chat. Engine lets August know that it's actually because Rudo is nervous. He's going to be visiting someone that is recouping, and he's not very used to that. In preparation for his visit, Rudo decides to ask the others about flowers, which we get to learn from Delmon. On the ground, flowers are a precious resource. Continuing on, they're difficult to grow and difficult to buy. That's when Folio mentions how hard Delmon's worked for his flowers, and as he's thinking to himself, for his wife who's gone now, which is pretty sad. Delmon ends up denying Rudo's request, which Rudo gets all frowny. All at once, Delmon's eyes light up, but bringing flowers for the wounded is an excellent custom. In that same surge of excitement from Delmon, we get to hear, if they don't need to be real, I know a shop that sells excellent artificial flowers. Now outside the door of Zonka, with a bag full of flowers, Rudo prepares himself. At the same time, Engine begins to speak on what happened to Zonka, which Rudo begins to second guess himself. Without a second thought, Engine goes ahead and opens Zonka's door, catching Rudo by surprise as we look inside. Zonka is sitting up in the bed, with his lovely stuff in hand, eyes closed. Very quickly after, Engine shuts Zonka's door. Then he turns over to Rudo to explain how much of a fighter Zonka is. With all those hardships that Zonka's been through, including what just happened, Engine thinks he'll become strong. After such a touching conversation, Simu calls on speakerphone, and we get to see that Gremlin has been brought back to apologize for the spell on Zonka. What the actual heck? So Rumblin is brought back to Zonka's room, and they have a small visit. We get to learn that she drew on the wrong spell. It was not the damage reduction spell. As she begins to try and explain things, which Idjit has to get it out of her, she tells Zonka to make like a flex pose. Suddenly, he gets this huge muscular strength. So this is what she's done. Zonka's arm deflates, and afterwards things are pretty serious. Zonka hasn't said anything at this point. Out of nowhere, he just begins to laugh it off. Zonka isn't mad about it at all. In fact, he's more surprised that someone would try to do that to him. He never saw this as some type of insurance. He should have just tried better. He forgives Rebelin. The room has emptied out quite a bit. All that is left is just Rudo and Zonka. Zonka continues to go on about strength and for Rudo to watch him. This is when we get to hear what Rudo's thoughts are about things. He no longer feels pity for Zonka, it's now vanished. As well as, unlike himself, he isn't blaming anyone for what he's been through. Instead, he thinks he can learn something from this guy. With Rudo seeing Zonka in this new light, he begins to do his very terrifying smile, which begins this small fight where Zonka thinks he's being judged. Rudo has now took his leave, and Engine comes back in, bringing Zonka some goodies, which Zonka was very happy with, especially when it came from Engine. After all, he is the person that saved him. Injin ends up getting in the other bed right near Zonka's, where the two begin to discuss the worrisome about Rudo, who has actually got a new goal of getting revenge. Not only that, they talk about the Raiders and their plans to maybe make more trash beasts, which is pretty worrisome. There's also the question about the Raiders' ultimate goal. Now, Sokka does mention about teaching Rudo some things as his trainer, but during this conversation, Injin actually falls asleep. With a transition, we get to see Zol and the others by the skeleton once again, where we learn that their experiment was a success. Not only that, but we learn that they have another proper trash piece for crossing the border that has already been prepared. However, they do need to enhance it. We then hear from Cthulhu where she mentions Hugh as well as Fu, and we hear from Zodal that he planted a seed when it comes to Hugh, essentially calling her a pawn, like she was saying earlier, but he does call her a good warrior. Then we turn around, and this is pretty crazy what we see next. Zodal gives Mundus a reward, which ends up being this Undertaker Canis Shortbreck. Okay, now we come to the ending. This is pretty crazy, so stand by. First of all, Zodal gives the next orders to Mundus, which is find the maker of the chokers, who more than likely has one of the pieces of the Watchmen series. I also get to know and see that Corvus actually has the Watchmen boots, and the only reason that the Raiders are letting this happen is because they know where they are and can get them anytime they want to. This is where things get pretty interesting. So as Zodal's talking, we get this transition into something where we see Hugh's body on the ground, and up above, looking down, with her sword and white hair, it is most likely Hyo. As Zodal is discussing his plan to gather all the Watchmen series because of the incredible energy it provides, we see someone in a crowd walking forward. We begin to get to see their face. They have red hair, and it kind of intrigues you a little bit because Rio also has red hair. Could this be someone related to her? What is the relation? Who is this? It begs a lot of question. And from the words of Zodal, and then we'll head for the spear. A lot could be said about this episode, but we're getting closer and closer to the ending, which I think is only two more, 25 in total, and it's been absolutely a blast. Another really great episode and kind of teasing us as what is to come. A lot of new faces and familiar one that we met earlier on in Zonka's backstory, which I don't know if it's going to get addressed within these next two or if this is a next season thing, but I do see us encountering these Raiders next season for sure with a big battle and maybe some new strength. If I'd rate this episode, I'm going to say it's a nice 9.4. Tell me what your guys' thoughts are on Gachiakuta episode 23. Hope you guys stay safe, and until next time, peace out, guys.